Microphone clear and present. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So give me a emoji of some sort if you can hear me. Um, Having some technical difficulties over the past couple of days, but I'm still blaming it on YouTube. Anyhow, it's too early for all that shit. Let's make tea. I always forget to unplug bucket. I'm just gonna leave that light there and rock the stains on my hoodie. I'm having a day. I am having a day. So I'm gonna make myself some tea because tea is what fixes days. Been one of those mornings. I'm gonna do some white silver needle. Not very much. I don't feel like I want to push my body very much today with caffeine. So I'm gonna do some white silver needle. I'm gonna do some um, brain. It's like microphone. You're gonna do microphone. I'm gonna do some wild blueberries. Some dried wild blueberries, which I'm pretty excited about. To see if I'm excited enough, I'm gonna put a fair amount in there. All right, now okay, ginger. I am going to do some fresh sliced ginger. Mm. All right. Tea. I got this little pot off of Amazon. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Well, let me do this first. Been the type of morning where I'm like, I have everything sorted out, and the universe like laughs in a maniacal tone. It's like, that's cute. She thinks she has everything ready and set to go. Let me see if I can. How do I want to start a poll. How the fuck do I respond in chat? It's not like on Instagram, apparently, where I can. All right. Y'all don't get to know. um, I will share a link in the description when this video is done of where, like, I have like this little Amazon affiliate thing where I can link, like, my teapot and the dress I'm wearing, anything that I got off of Amazon, like my tea kettle for boiling water, whatever, if I got it off Amazon, I can link it there. So people can call it home, and if you call it home, I get like 50 cents. Now, Ricky, I'm prepared for you today. He can't get into the greenhouse that's glowing on me anymore, but I still don't feel like I want to let him try, so I preemptively bought it. Brought a spray bottle because Ricky's a fucking gremlin. He's not a bad cat. He's just a big fat orange cat that likes to cause chaos, and he seems to particularly have it out for me. And I'm pretty sure that's because he's in love with my husband. Like, I think he wants to kill me. Like, he he loves my husband so much. He's like obsessed with him, follows around, and like the level of love this cat has for my husband is insane. Which on the flip side, I think makes me his mortal enemy. So like if we're laying in bed, he'll jump up on the headboard only if I'm there and try to knock the lamp down on my head. Anything I care about, I'm like, this fucking cat. My daughter and husband love him so much, so I'm just at war with the cat. But yeah, so I've had one of those, nothing in particular really went wrong mornings, but one of those slow, what is my life type of mornings. Uh, yeah, someone said orange cats are possessed. I agree. I really do. There's something about them. So I'm looking forward to my tea. I really am. And then I don't know that I'm gonna do much today. I might plant some seeds, but um, I woke up and it's like I started bleeding, and I'm like, nope, the world stops today. The world stops today. And it was the first morning that I was like, about these lives. I was like, oh, I have to go live. That's right. But I think it's good because I can just, that's the point. Like, I have to learn how to be here even more. Like, I mean, it's okay to have like boundaries and not want to like be present and take time away, but also like when you have like avoidance behavior, it's really easy to like let any little thing make an excuse. And I won't build a habit or retrain. Ooh, look at the color. Retrain my brain if I don't challenge my behaviors. I feel like this needs to be down more. There, now you can see the teapot. Kind of. Let me. And for anyone who loves a hoodie, it's a Walmart special from like years ago. I keep them until the fucking zippers break, you know. Um, I'm excited about this tea. I haven't used the blueberries yet, so you will either see my face light up with joy or be like, oh, sad, not enough flavor. That's tasty. It's there. I know it's really taboo. You're not like supposed to mix like fruits or anything with like your green or white teas or anything that's high end, and I'm like, I just don't give a fuck because I enjoy it. I think that the subtle sweetness that you get from fruits brings out a lot of the floral perfume type aspects from your white and like silver needle type teas, and I just I love it. um, well, who made up that dumbass rule was like an entire nation of people that grow tea. Like, and so, you know, it's pretty taboo. Like, but it just depends on the country you're in. But I really like it. I like to experiment. I also think it goes really well with apricot. And I usually just use small amounts of tea. And I really like this tea pot because I feel like I drink a medicinal amount with this little cup. And it makes me pace myself. Like, if we're being honest, like this could just fit like in a standard teacup and I could just drink it like that. But there's something about there's something about like pouring this little cup of tea that I just find really therapeutic, and I think I needed the special blueberry ginger surprise. I think I could have put more ginger in it. I don't really taste a whole lot of the ginger, but that's okay. I know she's there, and I'll probably rebrew this pot 2 or 3 times today. Sometimes as I'm rebrewing, I'll make the heat go a little higher, and I'm also really interested, and I've been working with brewing like non-green tea herbs like chamomile, lavender, really fragrant things in like gung fu style. And for those of you who don't know what gung fu style is, it's what this teapot's specifically made for, where I'm supposed to fill this inner vessel with like a lot of tea leaf, like usually like oolong or pu'er or something like that, and then I would steep it really rapidly, like maybe 10-15 seconds, and I would keep re-steeping it and drink and then re-steep, and it makes a pretty strong cup of tea in my opinion. I can't really handle it that way because of the caffeine. I feel like gets pulled out more, but I've been doing that with the aromatic herbs, like again like lavender or chamomile, and I find it works really well to not over extract the VOCs, but allows me to brew it longer than if I had been making a traditional Western cup of tea where you really wouldn't want to let something like chamomile sit longer than 10 minutes. And with lavender, if you're making a cup of lavender tea, you go more than a couple minutes, it'll taste like you're drinking your grandma's bathroom potpourri. But if you do fast, 15, 20, 30-second brews, multiple at a time, the flavor gets more complex with these herbs. You're able to pull out other properties that you would miss otherwise due to the lack of being able to let them sit too long because of their volatile compounds. All kinds of stuff I'm fucking nerding out about. I get like 2 sips of scan amount of caffeine and I'm like, and we're off. No. My brain was just like, all right, let's turn on. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. The other day, and I need to make a little video of it, I reorganized my hoarded herbal supplement type cabinet. It took me like 2 hours level of crazy. And I changed it all up so I could have one shelf just for my pretty little teapots that I like, and then the herbs and teas that I'm currently working with on the top. And I'm working pretty hard to get back to minimalism. What's weird is I wasn't really, like, I was a minimalist because I was like fucking homeless street kid, right? But before then, I have like this very distinct memory, and Lord knows if my parents are watching me or not, because they watch me live sometimes. But when I was really young, I'd run away, and I mean like 10, 11, 12 years old, running away. And my mom, one day at her wits' end, just decided that the way she would punish me would be to throw away everything in my room. I came back after, running off for like a day or so when she found me, and everything was gone. All of my possessions were gone. Everything I'd gotten from my grandparents, uncles, over the Christmases, from my parents, whatever, it was all gone. Anything that meant to me was no longer in existence. And it really backfired on her, because in that moment, I realized that I had nothing to keep me there. Like, I was free, right, in my mind. And so, I mean, I ended up, homeless at 13. And Ricky, I see you. You better run. Yeah, meow at me, you're stuck. and long story short, it freed me. I learned that I didn't need all this stuff. And so it would be years and years until, like, even in my 20s, even after I had my first son, like, all of the things that I owned, run. All of the things that I owned could fit in like a box. It wasn't until after I had my daughter years later, and I bought my first house, which was, by the way, an owner will carry a piece of shit, bank wouldn't touch it. The owner will sell it to you that way because they know that nobody can get a loan on it, right? So it's not like some fancy place. That I slowly started to accumulate things, right? Thrift stores, and back then the dollar was worth $1, so you could buy things without a whole lot, and and then from there, a decade. I lived there for a decade, and I moved suddenly to the top of a mountain, super remote, which is where I ended up after a bunch of chaos and hard times, creating my Instagram account, and went really big, all that kind of stuff. But while I was up there, we ended up losing that cabin to the logging company just because they poisoned the water all around us, and a bunch of other really long, hard situations happened. But long story short, I was too unwell from coming off of benzos to get my stuff. I maybe had, I don't know, the back of my small Jeep full of belongings, right? And then I lost everything again. And what was really weird about that is my life turned around. And so I lost all the stuff that I had accumulated. And I always tell my husband, when I think about the things that I lost, there's only a few things that I wish I had. I wish I had the horses from my grandma Audrey, like the Breyer horses, like the kids' horses. I had those from when I was young, and I wish I had this butterfly that was my grandma Ruby's that hung on the wall, and I wish I had a picture, like this painting oil picture that my mom had given me. Other than that, I don't really think, I couldn't really even name or need, or, other things that I left behind. Um, and so I'm kind of like back to that mindset where I'm like, I've been in this house for like 4 years now, and I don't nearly have as much stuff, but I don't know. The only thing that really brings me joy that I own in this house is my little shelf of teapots and my big hope chest full of seed beads that I do beadwork with, and everything else is kind of just there, right? It's just kind of like, and it just takes up space in my mind and my ability to feel like I have time to do anything, and overwhelm, and I don't know. So I don't, but I mean, also, who the fuck can afford to buy stuff? And you'll be shocked, absolutely shocked at how little the value of things you think you have, because you spend a lot of money on them. So you're like, oh, well, I can sell it and get at least part of my money back. Good luck. Right? It's really crazy how fast it depreciates, how much we pay for something and how much it really isn't worth. And every item in your house is $1 that you don't have. And ultimately, that dollar was time that you used to get it, right? So it's like, shit. So that's where I'm at, So I gutted my herbal cabinet, and I was like, and when I clean, by the way, when I minimalize, I'm a rage cleaner. I don't mean I'm like angry and mean at people when they're around me. I mean, like, I'm like, fuck it, I don't fucking care. And I'm just like, because ultimately, like, Yeah, where I live, even if I want to sell stuff, I would have to drive like 30 minutes to meet up with somebody, and then it's like I'm going to get enough to cover the gas to do that. And like I donate stuff if it's worth donating, but most of that stuff that you donate, by the way, ends up in the landfills of third world countries that they donate to them for a tax write-off when they can't sell it. So it's like I'd rather just get rid of the stuff and then make sure that I don't buy or consume more stuff. But anyhow, um, somebody asked about, just popped in my feed, and so my brain thought I'll answer about bleeding gums and receding gum lines. Well, yarrow is my favorite thing for oral health, but also because I've been falling down the vitamin C rabbit hole, a lot of oral health issues are from subclinical vitamin C deficiency, and it's really interesting. Like bleeding gums used to be one of the ways they would diagnose scurvy, right? And we're all pretty subclinically low on vitamin C. Um, because it can get depleted from like stress, lack of like nutrition in the soil for the food we eat, mold exposure, medications, all kinds of stuff depletes vitamin C, and since it's water soluble, it doesn't really build up in your system. So like if you eat an orange, right? Within 2 hours, you will have processed all the vitamin C that you're going to have available and pissed everything else out. It doesn't like the vitamin C from that orange doesn't really stay in your body long term. It's not like it can build up. And that's why beyond if you take too much vitamin C, you'll shit. But beyond that, there's no like toxic amount because you just pee it out or poop it out. But yeah. Anyhow, just morning tea. I'm really, really excited. And the past couple years, I've been too exhausted to do a whole lot of like excessive wild crafting for myself. So usually I get a bunch of huckleberries, right? But because I'm not a fucking asshole, I won't use a berry rake because they really hurt the plants, and huckleberries can take years and years and years before they even make berries. And then if you anyhow, so I didn't beat myself up over buying dried wild blueberries. I was like, I mean, it's potato, a huckleberry, which is also called a bilberry in different countries. There's a pro tip. If you want to buy something that's huckleberry but not pay out the ass for it, find it where it's labeled bilberry and it comes from Europe because they like it over there, but it doesn't have the same markup value like in America. Like where I live, there's huckleberries everywhere, but people still sell them for like, I'm talking, I've seen people sell them for $80 a gallon. $80 for a gallon of tiny blueberries is all they are. And I'm like, fuck you. You know, and it's crazy. And I know they take time, but I'm like, I see all the stems and leaves in there. You fucking killed that plant to rake all of those, you know? But, yeah, somebody asked what I think about the carnivore diet. I think any extreme diet will eventually lead to harm. I think I'm not saying it can't help people for a time, but people are like, oh, I got on the carnivore diet and I feel so much better. I'm like, well, were you maybe just like not eating enough protein? Were you low on like the BAAs, like the amino acids that are found in meat? Did you have a vitamin K2 deficiency? Were you low in vitamin A? Right. And so a lot of the times when people contribute, like let's say let's take another extreme, veganism. When people are like, veganism helped me so much, stopped eating meat and I started eating all these vegetables. I'm like, well, were you maybe not eating enough vegetables? Right. Like we're omnivores. And so I live like an omnivore life. You know, I eat meat and well cooked vegetables, and I'm not afraid of like real sugar and like, you know, I think everything in moderation, but um, carnivore can be like just as damaging because remember with carnivore that you have to be in constant like ketoacidosis, right? Like your body has to have high cortisol levels to extract glucose, which every cell in your body needs from protein. And so that means you're constantly in a high cortisol state. And by the way, stress hormones feel great at first. I say that as a person that has lived off of them for years, so I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I was able to make enough fucking massive amounts of cortisol without having to starve myself for carbohydrates. But if I was going to do carnivore, even if it wasn't for long term, and if I found that it was helping me, I would make sure that I incorporated a shit fuck ton of dairy into my diet because guess what? Dairy has carbohydrates. It's milk sugars. So at least it takes some of the stress off of your body and might help lower your cortisol levels. You know, milk would probably be the easiest. Sometimes when you get cheese, it doesn't have as much of the carbohydrates in it because the bacteria eats the sugars as it's turning into cheese, right? Um, but anyhow, um, somebody asked, when a person loses weight, where does it go? You eat it like energy, right? You lose fat and your body burns it for energy. Like you can be in like you can like burn fat for energy as like a survival mechanism, right? And it, honestly, over the years, I think it's good to be able to be adaptive at it. Like be able to burn glucose so you don't end up fucking diabetic, but also be able to burn fat for energy so you don't end up like super overweight, right? Like, and so there's like a balance there, I think. But you know, if somebody's super convinced about a diet, usually the only way that they'll be unconvinced about it in time is when they get sick from it. And that's just the way humans work. So I don't really, I mean, I'll talk about diet stuff and food stuff in general, but generally, like, I just, I eat a fair amount of meat. I eat a fair amount of well cooked veggies. I eat a fair amount of fruit. And I like to eat a lot of like properly prepared like grains and beans and stuff, you know, but I don't eat a lot of processed stuff at all, really. At best, if I'm real tired, I'll buy like a fucking loaf of like ridiculously overpriced Dave's Killer Bread, and then I'll like feel guilty about it because I know it's still full of crap, you know. But I'm human too, so I don't know. I think it does a big disservice when anybody who has a platform or anybody tries to pretend like they're perfectly put together. Like I will fucking sit there and eat a whole bag of chips in a day, and it might it might be that those chips are cooked in avocado oil, you know, or olive oil, but it's still a bag of chips. But I like potatoes, they have potassium. Right, but the one thing I do stay away from, I work really hard to stay away from man-made PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, like rancid seed oils like canola, safflower, grapeseed, you know, any of these oils, safflower, all vegetable oil, any of that crap, and it's in everything. Sunflower oil. That shit is fucking horrible for you. It really is. I'll eat sunflower seeds. I won't eat sunflower oil. Right? I got to the point where like I don't really avoid naturally occurring PUFAs. Right? I might soak my nuts. Nut jokes are funny. For 24 hours and then dry them again to like get the phytotoxin load a little bit lower on my body, but like I'm not afraid to eat that. Like if my son catches salmon and he does plentifully, I'm gonna eat the salmon, right? Like I just kind of found a big balance there. But today somebody asked what type of tea I'm having. I'm having silver needle with wild blueberries and fresh ginger, and it's delicious. Question about cooking mushrooms to eat. Someone claimed you have to cook them for a minimum of 1 hour to remove toxins before you eat them. I've seen, and that's probably coming from, even if they don't know it, that's probably coming from a lot of like the pro-metabolic crowd, which, you know, I fell deep into that for a while learning about that, and I think it's really valid information to learn about how the metabolism functions. But like there's a lot of orthorexia in there. There's a lot of people that are like, if you don't cook that mushroom until it's fucking paste and slimy, it's gonna kill you. And I'm like, okay, but like culturally people have been eating mushrooms for thousands of years and not dying from it, right? Like I cook my mushrooms. I cook my mushrooms for as long as it takes to cook the dish that I'm making, right? Our stomachs aren't like completely incapable of breaking things down. Like if that was the case, we'd almost have to like cook everything into like a paste and eat it, right? You know, but with things like beans, I always soak them overnight with a little bit of plain yogurt and like some kombu seaweed or just the yogurt or just the kombu, right? And then I cook them really well, like really well, right? And that helps after you've, you know, rinsed out the water and stuff. I soak my oatmeal overnight, you know. I prefer white rice over brown rice. That way I don't have to soak it, right? But it's finding balance. If you like the way mushrooms taste and feel in your mouth after cooking them for an hour, go for it. But don't feel like if you don't cook your mushrooms for an hour that they're going to poison you and give you no nutrition, right? Um, yeah, they said it was somebody who follows Ray Pete really close. Yeah, over the years, I just couldn't, right? Like, I like Dr. Raymond's core principles and concepts, right? But also, I'm not afraid to eat vegetables. I think that people can end up pretty sick if they just swing any one way. And, people being like, is it okay if I eat peppers? I'm like, fucking eat peppers. Do you like them? Do you have a noticeable bad reaction? Are you allergic to nightshades? Unless you actually have a reason to believe that they're harming you, right? Like if you have kidney issues and vegetable oxalates are a problem for you, that's great for your individual body. But like so many people are like, you know, like the man told people to drink orange juice instead of eat oranges because the fiber was problematic, and people took that like a fucking challenge and would drink like 5 gallons of orange juice a day, or I'm over inflating that, but it's like eat a fucking orange, right? Lately I've just been paying attention to like what my ancestors eat, and I don't mean paleo because paleo gets a lot of it wrong too. A lot of people's ancestors were definitely eating dairy and grains and things like that. One of the names the Roman people gave my culture was people of wheat. This is thousands of years ago. We were growing wheat. Um, and so it just pay attention to like, okay, what did my ancestors eat? What did my grandmother eat? What did my great grandparents eat? What culture did I come from? And I've been really finding a lot of interesting reactions to my body where like I'm like, whoa, I found out that my genetics are weird. I'm a fucking unicorn, but I found out that I'm genetically incapable of uptaking vitamin A. Super fun stuff. My body can't convert beta carotene into retinol, but it also can't uptake retinol very well. So I chronically have low vitamin A, and I'm like, how did this like manifest into like my people, and like what were they doing different in their diet, And so lately I've been like, oh, I'm really interested in sea buckthorn because it's kind of like with the motherfucker gene, the NTHFR gene, uh, where people who can't synthesize like vitamin B's in particular way and folates and things like that. Well, if you eat that stuff, it's not that you don't get any of it. It's like pretend you're shooting like let's say like a shotgun at a board and like only a few pellets get through but most of them get stuck. Same thing for me with the vitamin A. So like I realized and learned that like my culture had like a really high vitamin A diet. Like we were eating like seal oil and sea buckthorn oil, and all of the liver and all these meats and things like that. And so I'm like, whoa. So like their body had adapted like to where they needed really high levels of vitamin A to get an adequate amount of vitamin A, And so it's always made me wonder why like I really fucking love liver. Like I really love the taste of liver. I really love, a lot of animal fats, and I really love like the taste of like sea buckthorn tea, which some people will be like, ugh, it's very specific flavor, but I love it. And I'm like, so I've been paying attention to that. We also like ate a lot of oatmeal and oats and grains and barley, and those are things that I am just thriving on. And if I listen to the people that told me like, oh, those are bad for you, it's too much fiber, it's too much, vitamin A, it's this, it's this, it's that, then I might be sick. So ultimately, it's just paying attention to your body, what works for you. But also sometimes I think when we learn about like who our ancestors were, even if we have multiple sets of ancestors because we're all intermixed at this point, um, seeing what they ate and how those foods make your body feel individually would probably be a good way to break away from like the diet narrative of any fad or any situation that's coming on, and it helps you like realize like right now there's this whole crowd of people that are like vitamin A is toxic, vitamin A kills people, everyone's vitamin A toxic, you need to eat no vitamin A and deplete yourself. And I'm like, hi, um, I genetically can't assimilate vitamin A into my body, and I feel like fucking shit. Right? Like, I don't feel like a radiant being of health, right? Like, and these people are trying to be as low as I am naturally. But if I didn't know that about my body, if I didn't pay attention to what was happening to my ancestors and what foods that we ate, and I fell into that notion where I was terrified of any vegetable that had color or anything like that, I could end up in the hospital. Like, I could go fucking blind. I could have babies born with Wilson's disease, I could have all kinds of shit happen, you know. But anyhow, somebody said, "What do I think about homemade sourdough bread?" I love sourdough, and I think it's really neat because did you know like there's not one same sourdough bread starter in existence? So like if somebody's like, "Oh, this is a 300-year-old sourdough starter that I'm going to sell you," that's cool. By the time it's been in your house for a week, it's a completely different creature with a completely different microbiome, and it's totally different. And the sourdough that I have isn't sour at all. And it's just something to do with our local bioregion or my house, one or the other. But like, it makes big, beautiful loaves of bread and all kinds of things I make with it. But it's not sour. It takes me real effort if I want to make an actual sour loaf of bread. And some people might be like, oh, that's sad, but I think it's great because I can make things that don't taste sour because I don't mind a sourdough flavor. I like a sourdough bread, but sometimes I want to make waffles that don't taste like sourdough, right? Or I want to make bagels. I don't want everything to taste like sourdough. And so I've been pretty lucky in that regard. So I really like sourdough. I think it's fantastic, and I think people would have less problems with eating like flour-based carbohydrates. Because if you think about it, uh, the bacteria is eating the sugar that's occurring in the bread. So if you're like, let's say, type 1 or type 2 diabetic, you're pre-diabetic, whatever's happening, you have glucose control issues, sourdough bread will have a lower glucose index than normal bread. Right. Like you could eat it without having as much of a spike or any spike at all, depending if you're making sure that you eat it with like protein and stuff. But you can also add protein to it. I like to add egg whites to my sourdough, especially because I generally just use organic, unbleached, unenriched, all-purpose flour, which doesn't necessarily have the highest protein. So I might not get like big holes in it. But if I add egg whites, not the yolk, so I don't want the fat in it because that stops it from getting the bubbles. But if I add egg whites, yeah, I can get big, beautiful bubbles, and then there's more protein in it. I just use whatever I can get. I used to use a flour. I used to use a local mill, but they stopped selling the 50-pound bags because I cook from scratch. So 50 pounds of flour sounds like a lot, but we can go through that in about a month for a family of 4. But they started like just selling 10-pound bags for the same cost of the 50-pound bag, and I'm like, fuck you. So usually I get whatever they have at Azure Standard because we have like a drop near us, and so once a month I get a bag of flour dropped off. Um, but um, but anyhow, yeah, I think sourdough is great. I think real food is great. I think that we would all feel better if we were able to limit our processed food and rancid seed oil intake, but expand what we have in our diet, which is hard. I mean, when I go to the store here, I live in a food desert. It's like $100 for a fucking rotten bag of groceries. You know, I'm not even kidding. It's fucking crazy. Like, I don't really, we started using Azure Standard years ago, but now I just buy bulk boxes of frozen vegetables because if I buy vegetables from the store in like 3 days, even if I store them right, they're fucking rotten. And I know that there's not very many nutrients left in that because it's been sitting for a long time already, right? So, and I can't afford to buy food that rots that fast, you know? And so, thankfully, we do have the advantage of we raise our own beef and our own, so we have our own meat, and we don't have pigs this year, but we have plenty of leftover pork in the freezer, and we raise our own eggs. And I have dairy goats, so I have a lot of my protein needs not coming from the store, and it's still fucking too expensive to grocery shop, right? So it's hard. Um, yeah, it's really hard. Somebody says GMO is showing up in the labels on all the foods on the grocery shelves. Yeah, well, it's been there a long time, really. Um, there's some stuff going on in Europe right now that I saw where they're trying to pass where they can use CRISPR genes in their GMOs without having to label it. They don't want to label it because they're like it'll scare people. I'm like, well, it fucking should. um, and trying to outlaw heirloom seeds too, you know, over there, which whatever happens over there happens over here, and what happens over here happens over there inevitably, you know, because we're Western cultures. Um, but but yeah, this year I'm going to garden so I enjoy it for years I've gardened to the point where I'm like, I gotta have enough food trauma. And I had come through that a lot until 2020 hit and undid any self work I had done on myself about a fear of not having food, you know. Um, but this year, I'm like, the best tip I can give anybody is to grow what you eat. Grow what you eat. Grow what you know you'll eat. You might not have this big, huge, variety-filled garden that you see on Instagram or YouTube videos or wherever, but it'll be less stressful. You're more likely to be happy about taking the time to grow it and prepare it afterwards and store it and things like that. You'll probably have more room in your garden, you know. And so that's what I'm doing this year. I'm also focusing a lot on more perennials, which I'm having to find some weird perennials because, you know, you can't, like, where I live, it gets cold. I'm in like zone 5A according to the map, but really I live much colder than that, you know, because we're higher in elevation. They really only give us our zone to our nearest town. So there's a lot of things that say they're perennials that aren't around here. But yeah, I am glad that I came on to have this morning tea. I was like, oh man, I feel like shit. And I didn't really necessarily want to come on, but I'm glad that I did. See, and that's why I'm like working on, like, even if I don't feel like it, not to push past boundaries or anything, and I take weekends off, but just to, like, I don't know, just to, like, sometimes our brains tell us that the thing is going to be so horrible. We don't want to do this. We don't want to go to the barbecue or the birthday party or the event or the concert or do the thing. And then we do it and we're like, oh yeah, I'm glad I did that. Right. And so we can train ourselves. But yeah, so this has been a nice tea morning, and it sounds like my microphone is working because nobody has told me that they can't hear me. So that's a bonus. It really is. All right, let me do some shameless advertising, then I'm going to get off of here. So if you want to support my capacity to do these lives or whatever my brain comes up with, you know, the pop-up classes, the books I write, the free teaching, consider becoming a member of the channel. It throws me just a couple bucks a month. It helps support my capacity to buy overpriced groceries. But you know, there's nothing hidden behind a paywall. So if you can't afford to join, please know that there's nothing that you're not having access to. And if you'd like to support me in a different way, you can follow the link in my bio or in the description if you're rewatching this to check out the things I make, like my Synergism capsules or my mouth mud or my pit goop, whatever else I've got listed up there. I usually have tinctures. I'm working on teas and all kinds of stuff. When you call these things home, especially if you subscribe to like a consistent delivery every couple months, it makes a huge difference in my life. It allows me to spend less time working in the apothecary and more time doing things like having morning tea with you and writing books and making videos and just generally having the energy to exist as a human without putting in 14-hour days. So thank you so much for watching, and remember that you are smart enough to make tea in the morning with me. However I want to blend that in. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.